Good evening. Let's call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mayor Rankin.
Here.
Vice Mayor Smith.
Here.
Councilmember Celaya.
Here.
Councilmember Hawkins.
Here.
Councilmember Montaño.
Here.
Councilmember Walter.
Here.
Councilmember Woolridge.
Here.
Mayor, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight, in place of the invocation, I'm going to ask you to stand and remain standing in a moment of silence. 50 years ago, the class of 1964 graduated from here. We had a young man that was in our class, his name was Donald Ellis. Donald lived right over by the elementary school where it is, went to school all his 12 years here in Florence. Donald lived through Hamburger Hill, one of the biggest battles during Vietnam. On the cleanup, Donald, who was a corpsman in the United States Navy, assigned to the United States Marine Corps in Vietnam, stepped on a landmine and didn't come home, except in a body bag. So tonight, instead of the invocation, if we could all just take a minute of silence, not only for Donald, for all the servicemen that have died serving and protecting this country, all of those overseas at this time protecting and serving the country, so that we have the right to run as a government, as a free country. After the moment of silence, we'll go into the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. This is first call to the public for public comment on issues within the jurisdiction of the Town Council. Council rules limit public comment to 3 minutes. Individual council members may respond to criticism made by those commenting, may ask staff to review a matter raised, or may ask that a matter be put on a future agenda. However, members of the council shall not discuss or take action on any matter during an open call to the public unless the matters are properly noticed for discussion and legal action. This time I have two requests. Denise? Before 8? You want to comment at that period is what you're saying. Okay, thank you. What? No, I'll let you talk then. Okay. Ruth?
Ruth Harrison, Florence, Arizona. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here tonight to take my own advice, to stand up and speak out. I hope you're taking notes. Tonight, the staff will present the most recent design of the library complex. Because the public has not had much of a chance to comment on the newest drawings, I want to take this opportunity to bring your attention to a couple of components of the planned building. Above the main entrance on the northwest side is a clear-story glass structure which is meant to provide light to the interior lobby area. But in the design drawings, that structure looks like a prison yard watchtower, and an unfortunate and inappropriate design element for this project. 3 other less visible light monitor structures are planned for the roof of the interior plaza. The design of the clear-story glass prison tower needs to be changed. The steel sunscreens over the windows need to be much longer to provide sun protection as the sun moves throughout the day. Instead of a sunscreen for each individual window, one long sunscreen should extend over 3 windows on the northwest side. One long sunscreen should extend over 2 windows on the south side. And one long sunscreen should extend over door and windows on the north side. Please take these suggestions seriously, and as soon as possible, please allow the public to see the redrawn plans that include these needed changes. We all care about this project, and the town is going to have to live with it for a long time. Let's make it the best we can right from the start. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any other member of the audience who'd like to speak that didn't turn in a slip? Seeing no movement, I'll call the public. Charles.
6A, presentation. A, County Attorney Landa Voiles presentation on domestic violence and the new Family Advocacy Center in Santan Valley, Arizona.
Mr. Good evening. Glad to see you here.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Mayor, and members of the council for allowing me the opportunity to speak. I'm here actually, first of all, to give you a public invitation and a personal invitation to our Family Advocacy Center that we have set to open on December 3rd of this year. And for those of you who may not know what a Family Advocacy Center is, it is a one-stop shop for children who have been abused. And if you are familiar with, I'm sure, Mayor, having been in law enforcement, you know kind of the difference between not having a Family Advocacy Center versus having one. I know Deputy Montano, same thing. One-stop shop for a Family Advocacy Center is just that. If you don't have one of these, typically a child at their initial outcry, what we call their initial outcry, they will talk to someone about a sexual abuse or a physical abuse that is outside that original contact. When they do that, it's usually someone they trust outside that contact, typically a teacher. Teachers have mandatory report requirements. That teacher will talk to the child and report it to the principal. That principal will come and do a small interview on that child and refer it over to the nurse, typically, in that school setting. The nurse does a small interview on the child. They call up the police. The police intervene. Police intervene, do a small interview on the child, and then will often take the child back to the police station and interview the child at the police station. If there's no other place to interview the child other than that police station, they will interview him in the room that is available to all interviews, which is typically the same room that a defendant's interviewed in. Hard table, hard chair, shackles on the floor, spotlight, camera, the works. Child's interviewed there, CPS is involved. CPS will come out, or now formerly known as CPS, now known as Department of Child Services, DCS. They'll come in and do an interview on the child. After they've done an interview, they refer him out to a medical facility where a SANE nurse, a sexual assault nurse examiner, interviews that child. That can often take weeks before we can get that medical exam set up. In fact, about 4 weeks ago, we had a child who was sodomized, and the soonest we could get that child into a medical examiner was October 7th of this month. So it had taken about 3.5 weeks to get that child to that facility to be examined. After that medical exam is done, and after that time has passed, that child is typically referred over to a mental health examiner. The mental health examiner will do an exam on that child to determine if there's any long-term effects. And in that process, does an interview on their own. After that, that child eventually comes to the prosecutor's office, and the prosecutor will then interview that child and prepare that child for trial. On average, a child who is sexually abused or physically abused has, on average, about 12 interviews. And this is extended period of times. This doesn't just happen in one day. This happens over 6 months to a year. Right now, with the Family Advocacy Center that we have in Eloy and the one that we're building in Santan Valley, we now have a one-stop shop where we have all of those different disciplines located in one facility. Chief Hughes and the work that he has put into this has demonstrated great partnership with us. He's actually trained up his officers, teaching them how to investigate these cases. He's got access, or will have access, to the Santan Valley one. They have access to the one in Eloy. They'll be able to bring the child there where we can have forensic interviewers interview that child in one room. We will have the medical examiner and a medical exam room in the back. We will have all of the different disciplines in that one facility. The interview is done in what we call a soft room, where it looks like a little living room. There's a camera in there, no spotlight. just regular lighting, and typically a toy or something for the child to hold on to or to comfort the child with. All of the other disciplines are in the back while the forensic interviewer interviews that child. They interview the child one time. In the middle of that interviewer will walk out, ask the other individuals, what we call a SANE nurse, sexual assault nurse examiner for pediatrics. They'll be back in the back watching this. They'll go back halfway through that interview, ask anybody back in the back if there's anything else that they'd like to ask the child. They'll take that list of questions back into the child and ask the child the rest of the questions. After the questions are finished, they take the child back to the back where they're examined in a medical exam room, and then a mental health examiner is available there also. We've teamed up with Simpatico to actually help with that long-term effects of the child, and we've also teamed up with Goodwill, so that Goodwill has actually provided us vouchers so that we can provide clothing vouchers for these mothers, and we can provide a 72-hour kit for the mother and the child so that we can take the child out of the home on that first day on that initial outcry. Now what we have is when that child has their initial outcry, they come to that facility, and within 24 hours, they are relocated if necessary. One interview, one day, and it's all done. It's not extended over a period of 6 months. It's not extended over a period of a year. It decreases on the re-victimization of these children, and it increases the strength of the cases for trial tremendously. Conviction rates have shot through the roof since we've started using the facility down in Eloy at its fullest capacity. When I first took office, they were doing approximately 4 to 10 interviews in Eloy. We're now doing about 55 to 60 in Eloy. We have a projection of about 150 a month when we open the Santan Valley facility. This isn't something to brag about other than to say that we are providing the absolute best services to these children. And it's not just me saying this. We recently reached out to National Children's Alliance in Alabama. They've come out to do a walkthrough to do an accreditation of our facility, and they said they were returning with 0 recommendations. So they've never done this. This is the only one they've done this on. They hadn't had 0 recommendations for a facility, and we're returning with 0 recommendations, which means it's the highest level of services that we can provide to the community. That's what we've done in Eloy, and that's what we expect to maintain in Santan Valley. I want to just mention, though, that I know I don't have to tell you this. You've picked an amazing chief of police. Chief Hughes is one of the top-notch in his field. It's been a pleasure working with him. I try to meet with him at least quarterly, where I reach out to him to ask what we can improve on in our office and how we can better our services for him. And one of the things that we found in talking to officers and chiefs of police, actually, is that training was necessary. We've recently trained the different chiefs of police and their men and women on strangulation. What we found is that over this last year, our strangulation cases among domestic violence offenses have actually as far as 5 times increased over the previous year. From January to June of this year, our strangulation cases are higher than any of the previous years, so we're set to double the number of strangulations just for 2014 over the previous last year or the year before in 2012. And I wanted to bring this to the council's attention for the basic reason that as we see these cases come forward now, there's no reason to be alarmed. And the reason I say that is because the officers are now trained on how to recognize it. They now can go out there with a recorder on so that they can hear the hoarseness of these victims. They can see, they know what to look for. They know to look for the petechiae, what appears to be sort of 2 black eyes. They know to look for the bruising behind the ears, the swollen tongue, the hysteria that women will often show, and I say women because it's typically women who are strangled. They will be able to recognize these signs immediately, and they'll be able to follow up because some of these signs will last, even nightmares will last up to 5 days or even a week later. These officers are trained to go back and recognize this. I think it's important to mention this because it only shows that these chiefs of police and the training that they have implemented in their office and the standards that they're holding their officers to is one to be complimented. And so to that regard, I compliment Chief Hughes and the work that he's done in his office. because it's sort of like, I guess the analogy I like to use is the analogy of the scorpions. You know, Pinal County is one of the fastest growing counties in the entire nation. And as it's the fastest growing county in the nation, we have seen an increased number of scorpion bites at hospitals from Pinal County. And it doesn't mean that there are more scorpions here in Pinal County. It just means we now recognize them because we have more people here in Pinal County. Same principle here. Now that we recognize these, now that we recognize the strangulation, we see the increase, but it doesn't necessarily mean that there's more of it. It means that we're providing better services to those victims. We've actually implemented or put up billboards on I-10, you may have seen, to make the point that strangulation is in fact a felony. It's no longer a misdemeanor. About 5 or 6 years ago, it was a misdemeanor. Now it's a felony. You can actually serve prison time on it. Recognizing it, though, is just as important. To have individuals in our community who can actually recognize a female who has 2 black eyes and know that it's probably not from that female hitting the wall or hitting a door or falling on her face, but it could easily be from strangulation. Once we recognize this, we can help prevent it. Once we recognize this, we can prevent the homicides that are inevitable 5 seconds later sometimes, a minute later sometimes, and it's that quick from strangulation to homicide, where we have what used to be a misdemeanor, now we have a murder. I think it's important to recognize the severity of the kinds of cases we have and to be able to then defeat the problem that we have with it. That's just a few of the things, but I did want to come and personally invite Mayor, you, and all the members of the council to the opening that we expect to be on December 3rd. We'll send out formal invitations later, but with that, I would entertain any questions if the mayor's willing to.
The one thing I'd like to say on that, Lendo, is that it's not only family members needed, neighbors, friends, whoever sees this should report that to law enforcement. The abuse that women are put through is horrible. Children, you know, for 26 years when I carried a badge, the crime against children was the worst crime there was. I didn't care who the kid was or anything, didn't matter where they came from. The pervert is out there amongst us. It takes the whole community to watch out for this thing so these kids aren't hurt. Because once a child is hurt, it's hard, years and years getting over. So in your daily lives, you know, if you see it, you can always call the police department, call them anonymously. Just make sure you have your facts right so that the police department is not spinning a bunch of wheels. And the Advocacy Center down in Eloy, I've dealt with that. I've been down there. I've had some friends that work there. I've seen it. And I understand this is going to be a little bit better because it's something you put together a little bit different than the one down in Eloy, and to a certain degree. The one question I have, do you have enough safe homes in the area for battered women and children?
That's a great point. And quite frankly, we don't. But what we have, they are filled to capacity and bursting at the seams. In fact, I was just talking with some individuals here. In fact, Ms. Manning and I were just discussing this just moments ago and yesterday, that is an issue. We would like to have more of those safe homes, more shelters for women, because one of the things that we're finding now is that as we are recognizing this, we need more. We need more locations for these. And I appreciate, Mayor, your concern. I as much as the media wants to put out there about this, some kind of distance that you and I have, I don't feel any distance with you when it comes to law enforcement. I think we're on the same page with law enforcement. I think having been a former police officer and having worn a badge, I know you're aware, and I know you feel the need to make sure these children are protected, and for that, I appreciate that. So thank you, Mayor.
Does any other member of the council have any comment they'd like to make or ask a question? Well, I knew Reuben would.
You did?
Did Paul give you a list of questions to ask him?
I did.
Okay.
You know, County Attorney Voiles, one thing that I'd really like to thank you is to come towards the Arizona Public Safety Foundation, who Chief Hughes and I are both board members, and approaching us with this plan of putting a family advocacy center out in the Santan Valley. That's one thing that was really important. Instead of moving everybody that was in the Santan area, Apache Junction, taking them all the way down to Eloy Toltec area, we decided to work with you, and you've done a great job assisting us in looking for a new location somewhere close to the hospital and in an area where it's in great need. So I want to thank you.
Mayor Rankin, Councilmember Montano, thank you so much for that. And I will have to say, in response to Mayor's allegation, I know that wasn't from the sheriff, because that is a nonprofit organization who, with Chief Hughes, have been willing to reach out and join with us so that we can decrease the cost from the county level to actually build this facility. So in response to what you were mentioning earlier, Mayor, it is slightly different than Eloy in that we have teamed up with the community to actually build this facility there. And in Eloy, it's just at the expense of the taxpayer. So that's correct, and thank you to the Arizona Public Safety Foundation for teaming up with us in this effort. It means a lot.
And that's a great point that you guys made. It takes us all working together. You can't do it by yourself. The Sheriff's Office can't do it by themselves. It takes cooperation, and I'm proud of what we've done in Pinal County for this issue.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay.
Thank you, members of the council.
Item 6B, presentation by the Greater Florence Chamber of Commerce recognizing Service Masters as the Business of the Month.
Good evening, Mayor, Councilor. Jim Galloon from the Florence Chamber of Commerce. We are recognizing the October Business of the Month, Service Masters. With his loyalty, his 3 years of dedication and member of the Florence Chamber of Commerce, and his dedication and loyalty and his community service in the town of Florence, we would like to recognize and award the Business of the Month to Service Master Rick Luster.
I'm really delighted to receive this honor tonight for a couple of reasons. Our corporate name is actually Generation 3 Company because our business was started here in Pinal County by my father-in-law, who's a 1952 graduate, he and my mother-in-law of Florence Union High School.
All right, go Gophers.
Go Gophers. He grew up in Valley Farms, and they met their freshman year and married shortly after that. There are two main things we do here in the community. We do emergency service in the middle of the night when pipes break for insurance companies. So if you see our bright yellow vans around in the middle of the night, we haven't been partying. We're on the way to rescue somebody. And then we also have a crew that does carpet and towel cleaning. We work here regularly. Thank you so much.
Now, who's your in-laws?
Ed and Joanne Smith. Ed was the son of J.B. Smith, who was a cotton farmer in Valley Farms, moved there in the mid-30s.
Right.
And his wife, my mother-in-law's maiden name was Long, and there were 11 of them, including her older sister that was married to Bob Rankin.
That's my aunt.
That's your aunt.
I knew that was going somewhere.
Okay. Thank
Well,
you.
congratulations again on your award tonight.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.
Item 7, consent. All items indicated by an asterisk will be handled by a single vote as part of the consent agenda unless a council member or a member of the public objects at the time the agenda item is called. A, approval of the purchase of one Timeco 600 regenerative air sweeper for the Public Works Department from H&E Equipment Services. B, approval to reimburse Electrical District Number 2 for the relocation of poles to accommodate road widening and signalization on Diversion Dam Road and State Highway 79 intersection in amount not to exceed $53,307.84. C, approval of the September 2nd and September 15th, 2014 Town Council minutes. D, receive and file the following Board and Commission minutes. 1, August 20th, 2014 Joint Use Library Advisory Board minutes. 2, June 19th, July 10th, and September 4th, 2014 Planning and Zoning Commission minutes. Vice Mayor, that is your consent agenda.
Does anyone on the council have anything they would like withdrawn from this? I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as written.
Second.
We have a first and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Unfinished business, please.
Item 8. 8A, update from Parks and Recreation Director Brian Hughes on the Library and Recreation Complex construction project. Mr. Hughes.
Vice Mayor, members of the council, tonight we're here to give you an update on the Library and Recreation Complex project. As you recall, last month you approved the design-build contract with Low Mountain Construction, and they had a pretty aggressive schedule moving forward, 60 days for design development and construction documents. We've completed that design development, and we're currently reviewing that by staff and our project manager. At this time, just last week, we were able to take the design review to the Parks and Rec Advisory Board and the Joint Use Library Board for their review, and just to get some feedback. It wasn't an action item on either of those agendas. It was on the library, excuse me. But mostly the feedback was positive from the Parks and Recreation side. We also took the design review to the Planning and Zoning Commission, where it was approved, and a recommendation to be forwarded on to the council. So it's proceeding as kind of scheduled, trying to keep that thing going in time to meet some of our deadlines next summer. But with that, we wanted to have Jeff Denzek from Swaback Partners come before you tonight and kind of give you an explanation of the overall master plan for that site. And then also Aaron Babcock from Heidel Architects to kind of walk us through some of the elevations and things that we've only seen to this point that were conceptual drawings. We've kind of gotten to the point where we're a little more finalized right now. We wanted to share that with you.
Okay. Before you make a presentation, Denise, you want to come forward?
Good evening, Mayor, Council. All of you should have found in your mailboxes this evening the following letter. On October 15th, 2014, we had our regular meeting of the Joint Use Library Advisory Board. Those board members present were Sherry Berger, Talma Harmon, our secretary, Eugene Horn, Denise Kohlert, chair. Councilmember Woolridge, council liaison, and Rosemary Biebers, library director, were also in attendance. Board members were given a copy of the design for the new library/recreation complex to study and vote on. In a unanimous vote, we are forwarding a letter of support for this design. Regards, Denise Kohlert, chairperson, Joint Use Library Board. I thought that was important to get in there.
Thank you.
In the record.
You got it. Okay. Now, if you can top that, come on.
Mr. Mayor, council members, good evening. Jeff Denzak from Swaback Partners. As Brian said, we want to give you a brief update today on progress. And in a few minutes, Aaron will be coming up to talk specifically about some of the aspects of the design. But what we wanted to do first for just a few minutes is talk about some of the components related to the overall master plan. As you remember, when we got together earlier, a month or so ago, we talked about the 40 acres and the importance of thinking about this first project in relation to that investment. You, the town, have now made an investment in that 40 acres, and what we've tried to do as we've progressed on the design of really what we think of as phase one, the library and aquatic project, we want to make sure that as that project moves along, anything that's planned in the future can be done in an appropriate, efficient, effective manner. So this first image that we have on the screen, this is a snapshot of the North End Framework Plan that I think most of you were involved with. And we have highlighted in red the 40 acres related to the grading work that's been done to date. On this lower corner right here where I have my cursor, that's where we are tonight, that's the town hall. We've got Main Street running north and south, and we've got First Street right here. Okay, so that gives you the context. So one of the things that we've been very careful to do, working with staff and the design team, is to think about any and all implications related to Phase 1 and how that might affect future projects. And those future projects we're thinking could happen in the short term, the midterm, and long term, but the most important thing that we've discussed is that we want to make sure that this investment, in terms of these first projects, are done in such a way that what can happen in the future can complement and improve the overall quality of the environment. Again, just as a reminder, this was one of the visual perspectives that was created during the initial master planning process. And again, we've got highlighted that red 40-acre boundary. Again, just to kind of give a little perspective of not only what's going to happen now, but the potential for the future. Again, here is Main Street running north-south, and obviously that continues in the future up over the planned crossing of the river. And then related to this, in the background here, we have what we're referring to as the Riverfront Road. If you recall, part of the main strategy for the improvement of these lands, which we know today are within the floodplain, the area north of that planned Riverfront Road, which is really on the back side of that 40 acres, the strategy has been to remove dirt from that area, bring it into the 40-acre area and beyond, bring up the critical grade to get it out of the floodplain, thus creating value for the land. And that has been the strategy to date. Another thing we've been very careful to reference during the process is the territory square zoning that we have in place and have adopted. And again, thinking about the context of the framework of land use, of circulation system, and utilities. So again, we've got our 40 acres highlighted. We have our north-south connection of Main Street and beyond. We have here the River Road that I mentioned. And then we have here the extension of First Street that eventually is planned to connect to that River Road. The other thing we want to spend a few minutes talking about, again related to the visioning exercise that happened over a number of years with the territory square zoning, was the context of character, of design character and elements. And these were just a few of the images that we've presented previously that talk to the character of the North End and the Territory Square, thinking about hip roofs, thinking about materials that are appropriate for the area, thinking about shed roofs, gable roofs, creating shade, providing attractive environments at the street scene, and also providing critical focal points and things of that nature. Here's some more examples in additional slides. For example, the image up in the right corner, one of the things we've spent a lot of time with the design team talking about the idea of the pedestrian environment. We want this building to be attractive not only from a vehicle, but obviously it needs to have an important presence as kind of the gateway to the Territory Square area, but also at a pedestrian level as someone's walking to the street and walking to the building. So we've spent a lot of time thinking about that. And also the idea, and here's an example in this lower left, this is an image of Market Street. One of the projects that we've worked on is thinking about materials in creative ways that still kind of pay respect to the agrarian and ranch kind of culture and history of Florence and Arizona, and doing it in a creative manner. And this is just one example that we've talked quite a bit about over the last several weeks. Again, some other images. And as you know, one of the things that we've talked about since we've been participating with Florence is good design doesn't have to be expensive. Okay? Good design is about quality, it's about proportion, it's about shade and shadow. And these are a lot of things that we've been working on. This example in the upper left-hand corner right here, this is from a project in Gilbert called Agritopia that some of you may be familiar with. Just an absolute fantastic environment. And again, what we're trying to do is balance appropriate materials, scale, proportion, things of that nature to bring an important presence to this new area in Florence. What we absolutely don't want to do is copy what already exists in Florence, but we want to respect what's happened in the past and do it in a more appropriate manner in the future. Okay, with that said, I just want to spend a few minutes thinking about, again, the potential phasing for the project. And on the upper part of this slide, you have an aerial view. And this alignment right here is Main Street. Here we are in the existing town hall. Over in this corner right here is the community development building. And then here is First Street, okay? The red outline is our 40 acres. This additional outline is what we refer to as the core parcel. And that's important. That core parcel really makes up the boundary of Main Street on the east, the Riverfront Parkway on the north, and then First Street on the south, and as it continues up to the west to connect to that parkway. Those key roads make up that core parcel that over time we would imagine would be developed first within the overall Territory Square Master Plan. And that's important, again, because we're not only thinking about phase one related to this public building, but we're thinking about opportunities for future development that might be related to a public-private partnership, or it could be related to private investment coming in and purchasing land that the town has. So that's the existing condition. So here is the exhibit that has phase one included, okay? And here we can see the planned library, the aquatic center, the fields, the courts, the associated parking, the access drives, and then this empty pad right here, okay? Across the street is the existing Heritage Park parking lot. And we refer to that as phase 1A. Phase 1B might in fact be the addition of the future recreation center. So again, one of the important things here is that from an effective standpoint, this shows that that future building fits within this puzzle in an effective way. And in addition to this, if you take a look at these diagrams, back to phase 1A, you can see in phase 1B, we've added parking and additional access to accommodate that recreation center, which makes sense, okay? And you can get a feel for how much land area that this phase 1 and phase 1A and 1B project takes up within that 40 acres. Okay, then what we have to do is we have to put our kind of visioning cap on a little bit and think about what could happen next. So in scenario, what we've identified as phase 2, we can imagine that maybe there is a future town hall building right here in the center of that core. And again, as we've talked about, what we've done is we've created a visual and physical connection to that future building with access from a kind of a more formal access from Main Street, and then its secondary access with the building and then associated surface parking. And then on the lower side of these diagrams, we show in plan view how that layout works. Okay, and then a phase 3 we could imagine could be the northeast corner of that core parcel, where it might be mixed use and have some retail and office space. And then a phase 4, which would then go back over to the west side, where the extension of First Street would come up to the west and north to connect to the River Road, where we might have a parcel that has some multifamily housing, and then just beyond that, some mixed use again. So you can see how the site gets filled out over time. What we haven't done is put dates on these, because of course we don't know dates, but the most important thing is to lay out a scenario that makes sense for the land over time. And then finally, we're imagining there might even be a scenario where, number one, we might have a parking structure that relates to more build-out in kind of the civic core that relates to the town hall and future associated buildings. One other important thing, and I'm just going to click back to phase 4, you can see in phase 4 where we have the fields, okay, we could imagine over time, as the project is more successful and creates more momentum and creates more real estate value, that those playing fields that work for initially in phase 1, maybe in 15 or 20 years, that land has more value for development. And back to the master plan, which was always envisioned to have a regional piece of open space and recreation north of the Riverfront Road, we could imagine that at that point, these fields might go away, get relocated to that planned regional development. Okay? So this scenario shows a potential full build-out for that core area. Okay? So what the team, where we are right now from a master planning standpoint, we have confidence that we've built in the flexibility for future development opportunities that should just add to the overall quality of the development versus finding out in 2 years or 3 years or 5 years that, we wish we would have done something different. So we think the path is set in a very productive manner. And then finally, we just wanted to reference, again in the background, we have the original master planning scenario, and then we've just overlaid the refinement. Okay? And it just gives us kind of a visual reference that it seems like it's in the right direction. And just before I have Aaron come up and talk specifically about the architecture, one of the most important things to remember with master planning is it doesn't want to be a mandate. It doesn't want to be fixed. It should always change. It will change. It will evolve. In 5 years, we may have plans for a project that today no one had even thought about, and that's great. So even though we want this to be a flexible document, what we have in place, we think, is a roadmap that provides a good framework for future projects to come. Any questions on the master planning before we get into the detail of the architecture?
I've got one. I don't know if anybody... How many acres does the town have besides this 40 that can be brought up out of the floodplain and sold or developed?
That's a great question, Mr. Mayor. Mark, please, would you help with that?
Mayor, members of the council, the majority of the land, I guess we lucked out in the deal that we have, is still going to be north of the River Road. But we do go a little bit north to the River Road, and then we have a substantial amount of land to the west of here. We had the bulk of the land in the deal, but a lot of the land that we owned is actually ending up in the area that's going to be undevelopable open space. So really, this is the prime 40. We do have the land going to the west of the site. So I don't know the exact number that how much is going to be developable, but we'll probably end up with a little more than 100. I think that we could work with as far as real development is concerned. But a lot, all that land that ends up still being in that tiered floodplain is going to be a beautiful open space. So, I mean, it makes sense that we own that and can make that an asset to the town as well.
Because down there where we took the material to bring up here, there's no way we can develop that down there.
So when we took, Mayor, members of the council, so when we're taking the material, we took it actually, I think if you drive down there or walk down there, you can see how it's tiered down. So that land is going to be that tiered open space. So, and that pattern will continue to the east and to the west, where all that land where we're getting the dirt from, that will never be anything more than passive and active open space.
Mr. Mayor, council members, so this exhibit, and just like we're discussing, on the north side of this River Road, you can see the intent of the planned open space and open space recreation field, and we've done many projects where these kinds of facilities are designed within flood areas that during events they can accept flood to make sure it doesn't impact adjacent properties, and then they're also used for recreation. It's a based on the original strategy, we think it works very well.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, Bill?
Yeah, the rest of the the land privately owned along there, they're going to have to do what we did, right? They're going to have to bring up material from the lower part to get it out of the floodplain before they can develop. Is that correct, Mark, or who?
Mayor, members of the council, yes, that's absolutely correct, that the other landowners are going to have to continue the same type of work that we did. And it can be done so that the way that the conditional letter of map revision is being done with FEMA is that we can then take down, either the town or the private property owners can take down parcels, small parcels or large parcels, and be able to continue to follow that formula on a comprehensive basis. So we are doing the conditional letter of map revision with FEMA for the entire Territory Square site. The first 40 acres, we took it to the next stage of filling the pad, and then FEMA approves that pad, and that actually gets lifted out of the floodplain. But the other property owners will continue to do that same type of pattern, sir.
Mark, that was raised 4 feet to get it out of the 500-year flood, or was that the 300-year flood?
It's completely out of the floodplain, and I believe it was closer to 3 feet or so. Do you remember the?
Yes.
It's closer to about 3 feet.
Any other questions? Tara, you got it?
3 feet is equivalent to how many years? Because I don't feel that the answer was fully answered.
The pad itself is considered outside outside of the floodplain.
So I guess what Ruben said, would that area bringing up 4 foot keep it out of a 300 to 500 year flood? Even though I've never seen a 300 to 500 year flood, I know what a 100-year flood looks like. But would that keep it out of a 300 to 500 year flood? And I think, Wayne, you'd probably be more apt to address that.
Mayor Rankin, Vice Mayor Smith, Town Council. Basically, it keeps it out of the 100-year floodplain, and it keeps it 1 foot above it. So basically, on the 500-year floodplain, you got to recognize that in Florence itself, the 500-year floodplain basically follows the 100-year floodplain also. So that is the answer to your question, Councilman Montano, is basically yes, it does.
Okay. Thank you, Wayne. Any others? Terry, do you have any follow-up on that? Okay.
Thank you.
Mayor, council members, my name is Aaron Babcock. I'm representing Low Mountain Construction regarding the Territory Square project. I'm here today to talk to you about the Phase 1 components specifically. Starting with the site layout. You did see a portion of this on Mr. Denzek's presentation. The site plan specifically, the entry plaza or the gateway into the Territory Square, that is one of the things that we talked about as being part of the master plan, one of the master plan aspects. And the red dashed line you're seeing is really that visual and pedestrian link that we're putting to a future civic building perhaps within the master plan itself. Located directly north of that is the library and community center building. It is directly adjacent to Main Street, located off of it, putting it within the pedestrian zone, keeping with the context of the Main Street that's to the south. The associated parking for the library and then the aquatic center is to the north. The aquatic center then falling next to 2 soccer fields, 2 tennis courts, and 2 pickleball fields. As far as the drainage on this site goes, it is flat. We are regrading it, and so you understand that. We are basically taking it within the parking lot area, and we're using the soccer fields as our detention for the drainage on the site. The landscaping on the site, if we look at this plaza area, or the gateway plaza at the corner, we have a pistache tree, we have a ruella and red yucca, and you will see these sort of throughout, surrounding the buildings as our plant material. We're utilizing the desert willow across the southwestern portion of the building. We have the desert museum tree lining the pedestrian walk, the future pedestrian walk, and we're using the evergreen elm within the parking lot context.
Let me ask you, is
Yeah, you
that
bet.
desert museum tree, is that a Palo Verde type?
Yes, it is.
And Does it have the flowers and everything that falls off?
I believe it does.
I'll tell you what, because the Palo Verde tree is one of the nastiest trees that we got around here. And if we're going to, I'm looking at that, and if we're going to put in, because that's going to take a lot of landscaping, it's going to take a lot of upkeep and care on those trees. And I'd rather see a mesquite tree go in there rather than a Palo Verde. They're not as nasty. But those Palo Verdes, when the wind blows and if they got a lot of water in them, they break off like that. They snap off and break.
Like a Chilean.
Chilean. Yeah.
Mesquite or something.
The Desert Museum is a hybrid that was created to get the appearance of a Palo Verde or a Palo Brea tree, but it took out some of the nastiness of it. So it's a thornless tree. It's a much cleaner looking tree, but it still has the attractive form of a Palo Brea, which is similar to a Palo Verde.
So you're saying it doesn't shed as much as a Palo Verde?
No, it's a much cleaner tree. It was bred to take out to utilize the positive traits of those two trees, but to eliminate some of the things that you're talking about as far as the litter and the breaking off.
What about the stability of the branches?
It's also bred to be. It's a much stronger tree. But certainly we're looking at conceptual plants, and we could keep that in mind as far as other trees to utilize in the parking lot or on the site, by all means.
I mean, I don't know if any member of the...
Are these going to be fairly mature? They're not going to be little 15-gallon ones. I mean, we're going to bring them in boxes, right? I mean, they're going to be nice size to start with, I hope.
Well, Mayor and Council, we'd hope that as far as the plants are concerned on the trees, in the plaza, it certainly would be a great idea if it's within budget to get 36-inch box, 48-inch box, larger trees in the plaza to just get things going right away. In the parking lot, ideally 24-inch box would be ideal if we can get that in the budget. That would be great.
Yeah, because we need shade now. You know, I was kind of disappointed in the sizes of the trees that were behind the Silver King. Those are going to take 10, 12, 15 years before we get any shade out of those. I thought we were going to bring in mature ones, so I'd like us to see us bring in some trees that are, fairly good size to start with.
Down at the park, across from the museum, we've got some huge trees. Aren't they a pepper tree? I think they are. You can't get a better shade tree than that tree.
Oh, you're talking about that great big one out there?
Yes, down by across from the museum.
Mayor, Councilmember, those are beautiful trees, and that's what we'd like to see long-term to create the shade. So we'll work with our landscape architect a little bit more on some of these species that we're showing right now and see if we can't. We definitely want to get the bigger box ones right away. I mean, that's been discussed, as Mark mentioned, especially in the plaza area, which is our main entry. We did talk about 48-inch box and 36-inch box in those areas. And even in the parking lot, like you said, 24-inch should work right away to give us some shade pretty quickly.
I think I like the Desert Museum as a hybrid of the blue Palo Verde. And what's good about it is they have the yellow bloom when the flowers come out, and which is our state flower to begin with. So when you get the bloom of the Palo Verde, that's the same time we get the bloom of the poppy. So when you get a lot of water in the area, you'll get the poppy growing, you'll get the bloom, and I think that adds to the aesthetic environment of what you have around here. So I don't say it's a bad thing. Yeah, we're going to have to spend a little bit more time cleaning it, but the importance is that we add to the environment rather than planting flowers. We're going to see it on the trees. So I don't see anything wrong with growing a Palo Verde tree.
Well, it is dirty, and then a lot of people have allergies, so,
It's in the desert, whether you have the blue Palo Verde or you get
that's true, but why? Okay, whatever.
I guess my main concern on that, Ruben, is the Palo Verde tree or any of those trees like that, they do break off real easy in high winds. They get filled up with water and they'll break off. And then the debris, they do drop, and then the stickers on them. I don't want anybody getting stuck with those things too, because Palo Verde tree, I mean, even if we do live in the desert.
Like they said, these trees are hybrids, they don't have stickers. The issue you get is when you overwater them and the roots don't sink because there's water on the top. So the idea is don't water them as much and give it a chance to develop their primary root.
Okay.
With the discussion of trees, just putting it out there, Brian, you and I had a discussion a while back where I shared with you, in Seattle, Washington, it was the Beacon Food Forest. Basically, they built a park. It was about the time that we opened up the park on Main Street. They had built a park within the community where they had, orange trees, lemon trees, things of that nature. So that way, we're tying together an edible forest ecosystem almost. And you're bringing together, healthy choices, education, as well as aesthetics in the community. And items that could be, donated to a food bank. Kids could pick off the tree as they're going in that direction. Have we thought about something of that nature? So,
Mayor, council member, I don't believe that we've discussed that, the fruit trees or anything at this particular site. I think we were trying to look for things that were, again, kind of fit the desert landscape and were a little bit more low maintenance, but also gave us a pop of color. 8 months out of the year, I think some of these things bloom, is what Jack Gilmore, our landscape architect, said. So to answer your question, no, we haven't really looked at the fruit trees. I don't know that, quite honestly, that they potentially around the soccer fields would probably be the only area that I would even maybe consider that, but we can certainly take that back to him and see what his thoughts are.
just an idea.
Well, fruit trees require quite a bit more water, and I think we're trying to stay with a xeriscape here, aren't we? I mean, we're trying to...
Mayor, Councilmember Hawkins, as much as possible, we're trying to stay with some low water things. Obviously, with the turf and some of the other things that we have incorporated, they do take water, but we also are trying to plan for the future where some of these things might be able to use effluent water to save on costs too. So some of the valves and the piping that we're putting in now can be used down the road for that too. So again, there's a couple of factors where it might not make the best sense to put in fruit trees or things like that.
I think we remember our non-edible fruit trees we used to have on Main Street. They created such a mess. I don't think that would be a good idea, because those kids would have a field day with that. They wouldn't appreciate the value of having fruit trees that they can eat off of.
The best thing about those ornamental orange trees, we're watching the people who didn't know what they were peel them and eat a bite, take a bite. That was the neatest thing. Wilbur, did you ever see that?
Well, as Brian said, these are conceptual, so we will take this feedback back to our landscape architect, and we will discuss these different thoughts and ideas.
Okay.
The facility plan specifically, the community center and library, and you guys have seen this before, but we enter in, we have the shared plaza area. The blue space is the physical library space. What is unique about this plan is in combining the rec programming room, meeting rooms, and the library. We have this opportunity within this shared space that the library has access to programming rooms and the rec has access to programming rooms that would otherwise be buried in either facility. So really we can provide, for example, we can provide a craft room that typically is buried within a children's area of a library. We have access both from the library side and the shared side, so the rec programming people can take advantage of that room, making the facility more efficient and making the opportunities for programming much greater from both the library and rec side. The aquatic center consists of a bathhouse, a leisure pool, leading into areas for swim lessons. Then it has 2 slides that lead into the slide pool. We have ample shading not only on the deck area, but we do have sun shading areas over the leisure pool area. Then we have the 25-yard pool and dive well, and associated pump house and equipment building. The facility design itself. So as I mentioned, that the genesis of the design really was the placement of the plaza, the whole idea of taking from the master plan this gesture that we have towards the future development on site and creating this gateway at the corner. Creating this element, this plaza element here with the trees, the vegetation, and the signage. The building really starts to become the backdrop to this gateway. So it's the thing that you're going to see when you enter into Territory Square from the south. And the building, Genesis, came from the cultural history of Florence in trying to take certain elements and utilize them in a modern way. The building is set off of Main Street, but you start to see this rhythm of in and out, which is consistent with some of the rhythms of the storefronts that you can see on Main Street. So the idea is that the library being on Main Street with the glass there, you get the sense that you can kind of window shop in a sense as you're walking or driving by. You can see the activity within the library. And the library itself has a glass facade on the south that is shaded by a roof structure that extends out about 18 feet, and then there's sun shading on either side. This transparency then allows the library patron to experience the plaza, and anybody in the plaza being able to experience the library itself. I have a fly-through animation that starts to give you a better sense of how all the components work with one another. So as we're moving down here, you start to move into the entry plaza we talked about. Moving along Main Street, you see the facade is broken up in character, in smaller rhythms. We have a combination of block, of a rough block, a smooth block, and then an ephes facade. So the building itself is 27,000 square feet. You move towards the entry to the building with the vertical element to orient the user, and as we move back around to the gabled roof form where we have the rec programming rooms. The idea is that this 27,000 square feet is really scaled into smaller components, which we're thinking is going to enable future developments to match the characteristics of the building, because it's not one large mass, but smaller elements. Those same elements are repeated on the aquatics facility or bathhouse. You have the vertical element that orients the user to the entry area. You have the gabled standing seam roofs, and then you have the block components, both the rough and smooth face block. And as we progress out to the soccer fields, the lighted tennis courts, the lighted soccer fields, that really gives you a snapshot of the different components within the Phase 1. Entry plaza.
Take me back.
You bet.
Go back.
Give me to run through it again?
Yeah, I'll tell you when to stop it.
I don't think I can stop it, sir.
Oh, you can't
Let
stop
me try.
it?
Let me try it. Let me see if I can. I don't know if I can.
I'm going to take a look
Yeah.
at the back of the building. We've got the nice-looking building right there. We'll go around the back. Well, you can stop it right there if you can. What is the purpose of that building not being the same as the library?
So the idea being that library is a long mass of the gabled roof, and so we wanted to scale it down in a sense, because I think if it was that one long facade all along Main Street, it would start to feel a little too big. So we have this component on this side, which is the office area or office component of the actual building. It starts to break down the scale. Then we have our drive access, and in the master plan, then you have future developments running along Main Street, so that you start to break it up into these smaller components. So we have an accent block that's a smaller component, this component, then in combination with the larger component, we're sort of setting up a rhythm or a scale for future developments to be smaller components along Main Street, which is typical of what you would see on a Main Street facade.
Okay, I'm not worried about the size of it. I'm worried about the color of it.
The color of
is that going to be stucco? Or?
It's going to be ephes, and the color, we're still working through colors. We've presented some colors that the block you see is representative of that, which you're starting to get some of the brown tones and some of the red tones in the block. But we can certainly look at the color of the ephes.
I guess what I'm looking at, you've got a block-looking building, and also you got a concrete-looking building, and it's all connected together. To me, I don't know if I don't like that myself.
I'm wondering on that same area that it looks so sharp, and it doesn't blend in, I don't think. I think up on the parapet, if we went with brick like the rest of it, and then maybe up on the parapet have some little fancy things sticking up, I don't know what you call them. But anyway, kind of like on top of the Silver King, how they've got little, I don't know what they're called, but anyway, it's something to, you know, blend that in better, because that looks like something that was like a storage room that's built on the end. I mean,
I agree with
you know, it just looks too cold and too sharp. I mean, we need to break it up a little. Maybe put some little arch things up on top or something. I mean, you know, that would differentiate it from the rest of it. But I think we need to follow through with the brick myself. I don't see throwing that in there.
We can certainly look at that.
Tara?
On the top of the top picture on design details.
I call her Tara. She yelled before you did.
Go.
Yell, I put my finger up. Okay, I do have a few questions and a concern. First, with the amount of windows that are on this building, I'm wondering how is it going to stand up if youth or somebody chooses to throw rocks at it?
So there's a couple things going on with the glass, and I'll address that specifically and then a few of the other things.
Why don't you want me to run through the list just in case you address it?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so rocks if they're thrown at it, window coverings, because I'm worried about the glare that's going to come in as people are inside. Also, the cleaning of the windows. Hopefully, town staff has taken that into consideration because there's nothing worse than looking at dirty windows. But above all, my real concern is of safety, especially when we're addressing, you know, public shootings, schools. There's been shootings in libraries across the country. Safety should be our #1 concern. So,
well, let me start with safety. I'll just start there and go backwards if that's okay. So from a safety standpoint in this building, if we go back to the plan, you know, there's multiple ways of exit out of this. So even in the interior courtyard, you can get out of that area, you can get out of the library area. So there's no place within this building where you're actually pinned in or could be in a situation where you would be trapped. There's always an exit to get to, and it's readily available, and there's multiple exits out of the actual library space itself. Addressing the glass specifically, so we're using a 1-inch low E coated glazing that has a tint on it. So what that is it's two pieces of glass with it's argon filled. So it has argon in the middle, which basically is an insulator. So it's a very efficient window. We're putting a slight bronze tint on it, which enhances the efficiency of the building. It starts to reflect that radiant heat off of the glass itself. We are sun shading all the glass in the different areas. The majority of the glass is only up to 8 feet, and we have our canopies stick out anywhere from 6 to 8 feet. So we have a large overhang, and our windows or our glazing is not very tall. Where it is a little larger is here along Main Street. We have one higher window that faces east but still has a canopy on it. And then to the south, you saw all that glazing, but we are bringing the roof form out, and we have the shade structures on either side. We've done some sun calculations on that to determine that in the hottest months here, we are taking care of that vertical sun angle for the vast majority of the day. There's a little bit of sunlight that creeps in, but for the vast majority, we are reducing our heat load. As far as the vandal resistance of these windows, anything that is at a ground level has to be tempered. So a tempered glass is heat treated and it becomes very strong. It has to be tempered so that if somebody throws a rock at it, it shatters and it doesn't come across in big giant pieces that can char you. So, you know, we are addressing a lot of these issues, and along those lines, this is a public building, and you know, my firm, this is what we do. We do libraries across the country. We do municipal buildings. We are very cognizant of the durability of a public building and the low maintenance that is required. So we've taken that into account in the materials that we're using on the outside, being the block and masonry materials. We are also introducing those materials on the inside, and I do have some interior renderings that show, you know, we're using polished concrete floors. We're bringing some of that block to the interior, so we're trying to really create a building that is efficient, that is beautiful, but also takes into account that durability and maintenance aspect of any public building.
Okay, what are the warranties on the windows, just out of curiosity?
So Well, the warranty is going to really be on the glazing from not basically, and I don't know what the right word, escapes me, but from the glazing not getting a hole in it and basically the argon removing from it. So you're protected as far as the warranty goes for that. You're also protected for the frame system itself. So the glass, you're protected, and the entire building, you're protected for 1 year if anything's faulty, and then there are set warranties for certain items after that.
Okay, thank you.
Or until it breaks,
What?
or until somebody breaks it.
I didn't tell you, until
On the very top, it shows a small,
You're not gonna stop somebody.
clear
from
story?
throwing a
You're not gonna stop, I mean, it doesn't,
Somebody wants to throw
Hold
a
it
rock
right
through
there.
it, they're gonna throw a
Hold it
rock.
right there.
Do I need to go back to the rendering?
yeah, Tom,
This big window in the picture right in front of us right now,
This one?
yeah. That is facing what direction?
That's facing south.
That's better, but not good.
then it has an 18-foot
But if you,
Yeah, but when the sun's down here, you're gonna get the whole thing, right?
in the wintertime.
Yeah. Hopefully that's all.
On the very top of the pitch of that building, is that glass?
it is. It's a clear story glass up there. The idea being that it's exposed glue laminated trusses in there, and in a library setting, you want as much natural light as you can possibly get within it because it's the best reading environment. So we're utilizing this to filter that light as it comes in. It'll filter down through the trusses, then down on in and provide just a nice ambient light.
So it provides service like a skylight, but the full
Exactly.
length.
Exactly. Exactly.
I tell you, we didn't include any outside benches, this, did we?
There actually are some seat walls. There are some seat walls in the plaza area that we're anticipating. So we do know that, this plaza area, a planter with seat walls along the perimeter of it as well.
As an outside area and with a lot of people we're hoping show up to it, is there going to be drinking fountains?
They are not planned as of yet, but we can certainly look into that. What I can tell you we have done is we are running conduit out there with the understanding that, power, audio, video, those types of things, as you guys grow into this, will be required. So we are running conduit to that area to make sure that we can address that in the future.
Yeah, a lot of school sites, that's an issue they always have, is they'll build a big playground and never put any drinking fountains out. And so if you park in a parking lot and walk either from the front or to the back, that's a long ways in the summertime. So it's the idea to at least to have several drinking fountains in these areas.
I agree with you wholeheartedly on that.
We can certainly look into that. There are drinking fountains inside the building, as you're aware of, but nothing exterior.
Yeah, but you want the people, I guess if we got a lot of people running around down there, you want them running to the library to drink, and disturbing the patrons of the library is what I'd be worried about.
Mayor, we can certainly take a look at site amenities such as drinking fountains and benches and things. As Aaron mentioned, there are drinking fountains in the library recreation building as well as in the bathhouse over at the pool. So we do have some on site, but we can take a look at some exterior ones as well.
Well, I guess the thing I'm looking at, Brian, is if you got winter visitors walking around, even in the wintertime, they also look for a place to get a drink, and they may not want to go in the library or into the rec building. They may just want to be walking around, and there's no place to get a drink.
Sure. Well, we've talked about it in our design build meetings about the signage out front and how that's kind of a nice area for pictures and things. So yeah, it is going to be a gathering area, so we can certainly look at that.
Okay, I think the council would like that, Bill. I don't know, you got something on that?
No, I'm fine with that. Okay. What I'm wondering is, on our concerns this evening, I see that the schedule is, November the 3rd, you're going to start construction, it says, yet the design and development and construction documents won't be completed till November the 15th. So I'm just trying to figure out, on our concerns here and the community's concerns, what the final product's going to be. I mean,
Sure. Mayor, council
I think we
members.
need to,
There is, again, we have a design review packet at this time, which means we're still, visiting that design. We're also simultaneously working on some construction documents, things such as foundation plans and things that we can move forward with. As far as final elevations and building materials, things like that, there is a little bit of room to tweak that still because we have not completed those construction documents. Again, there's things that we can do in phases where we can get a little bit of a jump start on some things without totally completing all of our construction documents, if you will. The one thing I would like to remind the council too, though, is by having a mixture of these different building materials, it's helping us to save costs and get more bang for our buck where we really need it. So whereas you might want to see block throughout the entire complex, there is a cost savings by doing some of these other building materials too. We can, again, look at some colors and things like that if the council would like us to do that. But again, I would just caution you, the more block and things, that gets expensive, and that might be something that might take away from something else somewhere in the project. So.
Well, if it's too expensive to use block all the way around, then maybe if you're going to go with stucco, then let's go with something with some arches or something to make it look southwestern, then like you got a brick building up against an adobe building or something. I mean, that, to me, that part of the design just looks, it just so blah and so, it just doesn't fit in, I don't think, with
Why
the
don't you
historic.
bring us back some examples like Bill has suggested, take a look at it.
Sure.
And then also take a look at the block, how, what we talked about, get rid of that and having it all block around, take a look at that. Give some cost factors on that. Are you talking about facade outside, just facades on the outside of the building that don't really mean anything?
And I think what they're looking at, if you go to the other end of town and see the old main, it's all, the veneer is all blocked. And then you go around to the backside and it resembles the plain design like what you have on these other areas.
Right.
So we're resembling the same thing that the Florence High School has for their classrooms as well as what they have for Old Main. But what they're looking for is,
Let's see a couple
the
examples.
brick is good because it could be considered like a resemblance of the courthouse or Old Main, but when you go to the backside, it looks like the high school all over again.
Okay.
I think that I like the whole project. I mean, I like how you've incorporated the different building materials so that it picks up on different elements around the town, the brick, the stucco transition for transition to whatever may be built to the north of that area. I like the low maintenance desert plants. I'm wondering if there's a way maybe we can also incorporate some of that sidewalk type aesthetics that we've got that are going down our main street in certain areas. The gravel, decomposed granite or whatever you've got in there
It's deep.
for the landscaping, I like that. The overall, I really like the look of the whole project. I have no complaints of it. And as far as like, I'm trying to think of any, I know Bill's looking for some arches, but I'm trying to think of any place in the town that has arches that we would try to use as some type of a transition into making this fit within the town.
Well,
Somewhere
I'm
like-
just saying, if we're gonna go with stucco on one end of it, why not put in some, even if they're not actual arches opening into it, but just, like you've got, which, on the ends of the brick part, you got those rectangles and squares of a different color brick, the darker brick. On that stucco, you could do some arches in there,
Start to
fake
repeat that.
arches or
That-
whatever.
Kind
you
of
know.
like what's at the Women's Club.
Just
Okay.
something,
That
it
particular.
just looks so cold and so sharp-edged, and it looks
This looks like
so
some of our flat
commercial, I
roofed
mean-
buildings that we've got in town.
And we can certainly
I don't
look at-
know of any building that looks like, that's just flat roofed like that with just flat walls that's stuccoed, unless it's, I don't know of any. I see them in industrial parks, but
Well, we can certainly look like you were talking about, where we have this in and out, this play with the block. We can look at that play on the stucco as well. We can certainly look at that at mixing the colors or changing the colors, and it'll start to change that. We'd be happy to bring those back.
Is that a flat roof?
So there's a combination. There is a flat roof on a portion of the building, as well as there's the gabled roof, which is a standing seam metal roof.
You ever lived in a flat roof house?
Actually, I have.
Have you ever had a leak?
Yes, it did.
And have you ever tried to fix the leak?
Yes, it can be challenging at times. This roof would be a built-up roof. We would have a warranty on it. So we're talking about a commercial grade type of roofing system on this building.
Behind the post office.
Because I don't know of anybody that wants to build a flat roof anymore out here with the heat we have on it, and then because it just tears it up. And that's my question.
Well, part of the reason we do have a flat roof, there is a strategy behind it, and that is that our parapets go up, and it enables us to hide our mechanical units up there. That's part of the zoning requirements, is that you don't want to see any of the mechanical units. So it does give us the ability to actually screen those from the other areas. So, we do, where we do have some gabled roofs, we also have some flat for that reason alone.
Yeah. Voorhees has a flat roof.
And you don't have any trouble with it?
No. We've got a new roof on it. We don't have any trouble with it. It's not like we have a big snow load that we have to deal with.
All I'm going by is the old police department down here. That's all.
I did just kind of want to end with the two interior renderings to give you guys a sense of what's inside. As I talked about, this is the interior plaza, or this triangle area, and where the arrow is pointing is kind of what you're looking back towards the entry. What you're seeing here is there's 3 skylights within that area, because it is enclosed on either side by these programming roofs. We wanted to enable some natural light to come into the space. So we don't actually have skylights. We have what's called a roof monitor. So it's a vertical element that goes up that actually has the glass on the side of it and not the top, so you don't have those issues with leakage. But it still lets the light filter within and down into the space. And as I mentioned before, we're taking some of those durable materials that we're using on the outside of the block and applying it on the inside. This would be a polished concrete floor within that plaza area to really give that plaza area durability, that you could do anything you want in there and not have to worry about the flooring surface itself. This is a concept of the interior of the library itself. So you're starting to see the glue laminated trusses, the light fixtures, and this is looking from the computer stations basically south towards that plaza. So you get a sense of the light-filled nature of the library. With that, I thank you. I'll turn it back over to Brian.
Mayor and Council, that's all we have for right now. Obviously, you'd like to see a couple things. We can look at some options on bringing some things back to you at your next meeting. But again, just want to remind you that we've got a lot of moving parts here and a lot of things that we're trying to control costs with the different materials, and trying to do the best we can to keep this project on course and within budget. So again, we can come back to you at I believe it's the November 3rd meeting, and share some other ideas with you. But that's where we're at for right now.
Okay. Any other questions from members of the council? Hearing none, we're going to take a 5-minute recess. Call the meeting back to order, please. New business.
Item 9, new business. 9A, a discussion, approval, disapproval of the resignation of Jeff D. Woolley from the Planning and Zoning Commission with regrets and authorization for staff to advertise board and commission vacancies. Mr. Eckhoff.
Mayor, members of the council, it is, as Mr. Montoya indicated, it is with our regrets that we inform you that our Planning and Zoning chairperson is resigning from the Planning and Zoning Commission. He's entering his 14th year, so you can imagine the sheer magnitude of the projects and the change that he's seen during that duration. And if we could, we would just we would have torn up his resignation and not put it on the agenda tonight. But he's ready to move on. In fact, he has a busy life, being involved with a lot of other things, and he just needed to make a little more time in his schedule. And we're sure going to miss Mr. Woolley. We hate to see any of our planning commissioners, volunteers move on to other things, but it is with sincere regrets that that we have to accept his resignation, and we're recruiting members for the Planning and Zoning Commission. And but I know personally, and the staff and the rest of the commission members sincerely want to thank him for his years of service, and we know that he'll continue to stay involved in events in the community. And I think he wanted to come up and say a couple of words, too.
Jeff?
I just want to take the opportunity to thank the council. I've been through numerous councils over 14 years. But I did just want to take the opportunity to thank you guys for letting me be part of the process over the last 14 years. Thank you very much.
Jeff, if we double your salary?
Maybe quadruple.
Quadruple. If we quadruple your salary, you'll stay, right?
Yeah.
Do you hear that?
Sir.
Let's make an emergency motion on that.
Yeah.
Jeff, you went through some trying times with Florence. We went some good times also, as far as the growth and everything, and the amount of work you did on the. And I know that from past members and present members of the council, they're really appreciative of what you did and the time and the way you educated yourself on projects and so forth as that. And I was a few of your meetings, and I saw you operate, and I thought you did a heck of a good job there. It's gonna be hard to replace you.
Second that.
And like I said, we'll double your salary if you decide, and the position will always be open for you as far as I'm concerned, is set in the next 2 years as long as I'm here. So if you get away from it and you miss it too much, you can always come back.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, John.
I just want to say that, I was on planning and zoning, and Jeff was a great mentor to me and to everybody that's been on planning and zoning, and I know several of you have been there. He ran the meetings well. We couldn't have asked for a better leader, and I want to thank him publicly and personally. Thank you.
Thanks, John. With all that, does anybody else have anything, or do you want to make a motion?
Well, I'd like to just say that, yes, I'd like to back that up. He's always done a very professional job and very knowledgeable. Yeah, he's going to be sorely missed, for sure.
I agree. I'll just say ditto to everything. We're going to miss you, Jeff. You always did a phenomenal job. Thank you.
I know he'll be around quite a bit, and he'll still be participating with the Florence School District. He's been very active, him and his wife, so glad to see you at least stick around town. Don't go anywhere.
Okay, you need a motion.
Go ahead.
I'll make a motion to accept the resignation of Jeff D. Woolley from Planning and Zoning Commission.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the resignation of Jeff Woolley from the Planning and Zoning Commission. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Item 9B, discussion, approval, disapproval of entering into a contract with R.K. Sanders Incorporated for Diversion Dam Road Street Improvement Project in an amount not to exceed $1,021,985.10. Mr. Costa.
Mayor Rankin, Vice Mayor Smith, Town Council. Basically, we're looking for a motion to award a contract to R.K. Sanders for improvements to Diversion Dam Road, which includes its widening, road construction, curb and gutter installation, storm drainage, and street lighting in an amount not to exceed $1,021,985.10. This is funded by the HERF Capital Improvement Plan, and what we're doing is converting Diversion Dam to a road to a major collector and making intersection improvements with Highway 79 in conjunction with ADOT signalization at State Highway 79, which is a separate project administered by ADOT. That project has also been bid on October 10th and due to start construction on November 15th, or award the contract on November 15th. Our project will parallel that and
and support that project with the installation of some utilities such as conduit and irrigation lines. The purpose of this project is to reduce traffic congestion, accommodate business accesses, provide safety, and account for an increase in traffic volumes, thus negating traffic delays, especially during peak hours. We're going to have two westbound left turn lanes onto State Highway 79 and one right turn lane onto northbound 79, and then also be two eastbound lanes for the first 300 feet on diversion dams, and mitigating access to the westernmost access at the McDonald's. There's approximately 5,000 cars, of which approximately about 800 are during the peak hour. So we want to mitigate those additions. There'll be a sensor on First Street to accommodate emergency vehicles in order to signal the traffic signal. In the audience tonight, I have our engineer, Wildan, with Wildan. His name is Ken Martin, in the event there's any detailed questions. So basically, asking for we're recommending a water contract to R.K. Sanders. It's a unit price contract, and be firmed up basically on the units installed. And it's under budget by about $220,000. But of that, the $50,000 for ED2 was included in that budget amount.
Any question, Wayne?
Will the traffic light project run concurrent with this? They will do it all at the same time, or?
Oh, definitely, yes.
Okay.
And this project will take as calendared for 210 days, so we anticipate a mid-May, early June completion.
Okay.
I have one. Is that irrigation deal still there on the southeast corner?
Yeah, yes, that's due to be relocated. We're about 95% there. I just need a final approval from SCID, and ADOT needs their final utility clearance.
Okay. Okay, so pushing it out 300 feet going east, that'll put us close to the entrance going ingress egress for Shell Station, correct?
Yeah, we'll be past that. We'll be past that. Ingress, egress into the Super Stop and also into the McDonald's and that vacant lot. And incidentally, that will be concrete. That will get rid of a lot of the rutting from the stopping of vehicles at the intersection with 79. So the first 300 feet is concrete.
And then it'll reduce down to 2 lanes continuing down Diversion Dam Road?
That's correct, and there'll also be a periodic left turn lanes to access into GO, the county area, et cetera.
So will the bar ditch in both sides be redeveloped in those areas for water or for flooding, or will they remain like they are?
Yes, there'll be, basically it consists of a number of lateral detention ponds along the northern and southern edges of the road, and in addition, there'll be an outlet on the north side of Diversion Dam to accommodate excess stormwater.
Where are you planning on taking that water?
There's an existing drainage ditch that goes down through the county and eventually into the detention pond. It'd be metered, so basically...
It'll be crossing down at... down by the county retention pond. There's a culvert there under 79. Is that where you're going to be running the water?
Yes, basically it goes through that detention pond into those 5 culverts.
And is the APS power pole on First Street and 79, is that going to be moved?
That is not part of this project.
Huh?
That is not part of this project.
Well, that is a safety, that's the biggest safety issue out there except for the traffic flow on, the amount of traffic on 79, because you have to pull way out there to be able to see that.
Are you saying that you're dumping into the county retention ponds?
No,
because we've already got an issue, a really bad issue with water coming off of 79 into those retention ponds, and also from the credit union where we've got a lot of erosion.
I'll let Ken help me with that answer to make sure I give you a correct answer.
Mayor, members of the council,
as Wayne said, we are dropping that water, basically taking it right off the north side of Diversion Dam Road and into that ditch. We looked at the capacity of that ditch. We didn't go down so far as looking at the capacity of that retention area, but we can take a look at that.
That's the ditch located on the corner right there, or back to about 500 yards or 500 feet behind Diversion Dam Road?
It's just immediately north of Diversion Dam Road. That
Now,
part of the-
which direction does that ditch flow?
To the northwest, I believe it is.
So it does feed into the retention pond there at the county.
And that pond does get full.
Yeah, I'm just, you know, it's a consistent battle for facilities to push the dirt back up the side of the hill, because it's, every time we get a good rainstorm, there's deterioration on the 79 side all the way around through to the side where the credit union and the old lube shop used to be.
Will we look at that in regards to meter flow and or the installation of dry wells on that north side? That will take care of some of the flows in the its lateral detention ponds along the north side of Diversion Dam.
All I know is it's way overdue that we get a light in there.
In fact, there was an accident today on that intersection.
Was there?
This morning, yes.
The town did contribute 33% of the cost to that project.
How much?
33%.
Third of it?
Yes, courtesy of CCA.
And so who funded the majority of it? A third by the town, a third by CCA?
No, a third by CCA.
CCA gave
Yes.
us the third.
Yes, sir.
And then the state was with the rest?
That's correct.
That's good.
Well, the water right now, it's handled, I mean, we're not having any flooding issues over there now, are we?
On Diversion Dam?
Yeah.
Yes, we are, on the south side primarily, and it crosses over at the intersection with 79, and what we're doing is taking care of that stormwater by putting lateral detention ponds on the south side and also on the north side. And we'll take a look at the metering into the retention pond, or the detention pond that was identified earlier.
These will be new retention ponds that presently aren't there?
Or dry well, which will accommodate some of the excess flow.
I know that CCA is going to assist with 1/3, but did we receive any assistance through GEO? Because their facility is right there close to the intersection.
No, and as far as I recollect, there was no funding by GEO.
Contributions.
Yeah, no contribution by GEO.
Any other question? Need a motion?
Make a motion to award a contract with R.K. Sanders for improvements to Diversion Dam Road, including widening, road construction, curb gutter, storm drainage, and street lighting in the amount not to exceed $1,021,985.10.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to award contract to R.K. Sanders for improvements to Diversion Dam Road, including widening, road construction, curb and gutter, storm drainage, and street lighting amount not to exceed $1,021,990 or $985.10. Any other discussion? Wayne, one thing I did want to bring out. I understand we have a business thinking about going into the back of, to the east of McDonald's. And has a curb cut been laid out in this plan and everything for that?
We had discussions with the potential business and agreed to put it in if we can get their site plan in a timely manner.
Okay.
And they also were amiable to a one entrance, one exit entranceway into their facility also.
Okay. Any other discussion? Call for the question. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Item 9C, discussion, approval, disapproval of entering into a lease agreement with the Florence Mosaic Church of the Nazarene, Florence Fudge Company, for the Silver King Marketplace Suite 102. Ms. Evans?
Mayor Rankin, council members,
Currently, the Mosaic Church of the Nazarene operates the Florence Fudge Company in Suite 101 of the Silver King Hotel Marketplace. And they have managed this business for the past 4 years. Actually, they are our longest standing tenant in that building. Well, over the course of the past 4 years, they have built their business to the point where they are looking to expand and would like to do so in Suite 102 of the Silver King. So you have the lease agreement before you for that. We have been working with the Mosaic Church for the past several months on their expansion project, and during the course of that time, an issue came up where we had to address their collection or non-collection of transaction privilege tax. And I'm happy to report that we do have that squared away now, and they have agreed to collect TPT, or transaction privilege tax, for Florence, which is 2%. And to give you some idea of what that is, on $100,000 gross revenues over the course of a year, they would be required to pay $2,000 in tax to the town of Florence. So they have agreed to do so, and like I said, they are a longstanding tenant in the Silver King. They have been excellent tenants. The operation of their business, it conforms to the downtown commercial code as well as our Silver King leasing policy. And with that, I will turn it over to Doretta Allison in case you all have any questions for her and specific operations of the Fudge Shop.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, if you have any questions, just fire them away.
Instead of 100,000, can you make it about 200,000 so we can get that extra $2,000 in taxes?
Well, we might be able to do that by increasing our space. I don't know.
I sure hope so, Doretta.
I do too.
Yeah,
That would be great. We would love to.
I think that you've done a wonderful job down there with the way building your business and everything. I thank you for working with the town on the tax situation. You're going to be right there by the new park and everything, and I think that that's going to help your business. I still eat there every once in a while, and I haven't got sick yet, and I'm just happier than heck with you. The service I've got down there, the people that you have working for you have done a great job for you.
Thank you.
And I don't know if anybody else got anything you want to say or make a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the Silver King Marketplace lease agreement with the Florence Mosaic Church of the Nazarene, Florence Fudge Company, Suite 102.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the lease agreement between the town of Florence and the Florence Mosaic Church of the Nazarene, Florence Fudge Company for the Silver King Marketplace, Suite 102, as presented. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. You're open for business, darling.
Okay. Can I just say real quickly how much we love the park, how great it's turning out, and we're so excited to be able to add something to that corner. I think with us expanding and being open more, and McFarland and the gift shop and the park, it's going to be an amazing corner, and we're going to do lots of business.
Good.
So please, all of you, come.
Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer.
Item 9D, resolution number 1473-14, discussion, approval, disapproval of a resolution of the Town of Florence, Pinal County, Arizona, adopting revisions to the Town of Florence personnel policy. Mr. Barber.
Mayor, ranking members of the council, we've been working on a number of policies, including our employee drug and alcohol testing policy, and through that process we've come to appreciate the need to amend our personnel policy provisions to take advantage of the protection offered in the Arizona revised statutes, creating a good faith standard for protection from liability on these kinds of issues. So it just makes sense for us to add specific language from the statute, and so we're asking for your approval on that now. Also, we found a couple of typos in one of the other sections that we'd like to correct tonight. So that's the resolution before you this evening. I'll answer any questions you have.
Any question?
I do. Scott, when I was reading through this, I had a little bit of difficulty deciphering what the original language was and what the changes that were made. Can you please briefly give council an overview of what was originally there, what was being changed to adapt to take full use of the new laws, and how that will impact?
Well, obviously, in the attachment, you see everything that's added is underlined, and you would see that our previous language in this personnel policy per se was very austere, and it simply allowed for the possibility of drug testing. We have requirements under our commercial driver's license rules for those employees, and then all of the others as well. We've had to adapt over the number of years on limitations in terms of universal pre-employment drug testing and also random drug testing for non-CDL drivers. What we're doing at this particular point in time is just expanding the language and then, again, lifting some of the language from the statute and providing specific language that says what kind of testing we're going to do and under what circumstances. Does that answer your question?
Sort of. I have a little bit more to elaborate on. One of the newly underlined sections, because that's what I thought, but I wanted you to explain it. It says an employee taking prescribed drugs or over-the-counter medications that may potentially impair the safe performance of his or her duties must notify the supervisor, who shall determine if the employee is able to safely perform his or her duties. One of the concerns I have is if it violates HIPAA. Say you have an employee that's under a medication and they don't really necessarily want to disclose, and they're under the doctor's care, and they say, you know, this should not inhibit your ability, but something happens down the road. Can you please explain how that would be addressed?
Well, the fact of the matter is that HIPAA, for members of the mayor and council, it's health privacy involved with that. This creates an affirmative responsibility on the part of the employee to communicate where it's appropriate with the supervisor if they're under medication. Now, for example, we remind our commercial driver's license holders that they have an affirmative responsibility to communicate with their physician if they have an upper respiratory infection and they're taking a prescribed medication that will impair their ability to drive. They have an affirmative responsibility to deal with their supervisor on that issue. And we certainly won't want people operating equipment or doing their jobs that are not fit to do so because of this situation. So we're simply saying that if you're involved with taking prescribed medication and it potentially inhibits or interferes with your ability to do your job, you need to engage with your employer on that. HIPAA doesn't shield an employee from having to make sure that they're fit to do the job. And this requires a one-on-one, right? It limits from a perspective of need to know and what have you. So I don't believe we have an issue of violating of that particular regulation in creating this affirmative responsibility when it's appropriate.
Okay, thank you for your
I kind of see some gray there too. I think the way that Pinal County handles it is they have an occupational health nurse as a kind of intermediate with the employee and the supervisors or directors. So I don't know if that's something that it would add additional personnel to the town, but I agree that is kind of a gray issue. So.
Well, being a CDL driver or having a CDL, I'm not driving at the moment, but it doesn't matter. I've still tested periodically anyway under federal law. But what the deal is, if it's a drug that's going to affect your ability to, to be alert, or, they're not talking about antibiotics or aspirin or anything like that. They're talking about things that'll make you tired or whatever. I've been working under these rules for probably 30 years now. I've never had any problem with anybody, if they've got a drug that affects your ability to perform normally, then you have to disclose that. I mean, or you don't drive trucks, or you don't drive. That's just the way it is. I mean, that's the law is the law of the land. And, yeah.
And one more point that I just want to bring out, and I would like you to shine some light on it. With new legislation and what's happening in the state of Arizona as they're discussing medicinal marijuana, how is that going to impact what's in this personnel policy for testing?
The fact of the matter is that the medical marijuana rules of the state of Arizona do not protect an employee. It's still illegal from a federal perspective, and the problem with medical marijuana is there's no establishment of presumption of intoxication. But nonetheless, if someone is involved in an accident, for example, let's say a non-CDL driver, involved in an accident in a city vehicle, there's reasonable suspicion in regard to impairment, and that employee was tested positive for marijuana, that would be a major problem for the employee. The language in the Arizona law doesn't protect an employee from the implication of being potentially impacted or under the influence of medical marijuana. Employees still may not use, possess, or be, quote, under the influence of, unquote, on the job. So that's something that's still in a bit of a state of flux. And as you might guess, a lot of conversation in Colorado about trying to establish presumption of impairment. Nothing has happened at that particular point in time. We don't have the luxury of a trained medical professional to stand in between the employee and supervisor. So I do understand that the county handles it that way, and many larger organizations that are able to have trained medical staff or someone on retainer, if you will, to do that. This does establish that communication between the employee and the supervisor, and we feel comfortable with that. But if council doesn't feel comfortable with that, well, we'll certainly stand to be amended.
Could we maybe look at an IGA with Pinal County in terms of what Councilmember Celaya had presented? And sharing those resources.
When you get a prescription, it says right on there if you should be operating equipment or not. So if the employee goes ahead and does it, then they're in violation. I don't think we need to hire a nurse or spend more money. It's pretty cut and dry. I haven't heard of anybody having any problems. This is pretty standard. So I can't see us.
I think that the way we got it coming into the recommendation on here is fine. I think the idea of maybe taking a look after implementing this and seeing if there is an agreement that we can work out with Pinal County if they have the time and the resources to do it.
I think they have too many that are being seen right now.
Yeah,
so.
and again, I go to Bill. You know, it's an employee's responsibility to notify the supervisor, where the policy here we're setting protects the town under the liability issue. If one of our employees goes out there, we can come back on the employee if he has an accident, somebody else is hurt. And that's what I look at this as more of an insurance to us, because sometimes if they're doing marijuana or something, they ain't going to tell you anyway.
No.
You know, they're not going to come up and say, I'm on medical marijuana.
But there again, if they take a prescription or any drug,
right,
that it says on there, if you shouldn't be operating equipment, then you shouldn't be operating equipment. If you're taking that, then you need to tell your supervisor, hey, I'm taking this. It says I shouldn't be operating. Maybe they can put them on some different duty that day or that week or whatever. But yeah, it's up to the employee under this policy. It's on the employee's back. So,
Can you give us a definition of the HIPAA, just a brief general definition of why it's in place?
HIPAA was put in place to protect individuals' medical information, essentially between them and their physician. Certainly in our organization, HIPAA exposure, HIPAA responsibility, specifically in the fire department, in our emergency medical treatment, they have responsibilities for protection of the collection. In my office, we have some HIPAA issues regarding our employee health insurance. We have to pay attention to those there. Generally, as it relates to our employees, typically someone does not have to call in, in the fringe area of HIPAA. An employee doesn't have to call in and give all the details of their medical condition. So the issue is the medical information protection, and there's different interpretations of that. We just try to take a common sense approach here and think it'll work out. But I really don't have a textbook definition, except that it's in the Health Insurance Portability and Affordability Act, I think is what it is, HIP DA or something like that, there was the element of protecting medical information, and it responded to the electronic information age and making sure that medical providers specifically are protecting medical information of their patients.
And it does apply, but also in the law enforcement field, you have to look at who can qualify with a weapon, what issues they have, whether it's their eyes or diabetes or issues with tuberculosis. You have to look at that, as well as those that want to receive shots for flu, things like that that apply to each individual, or those who don't. So there's always a concern, and it's always good to have an OHN available. I mean, they work with the personnel department, but they also protect the rights of your fire department and law enforcement, as well as the rest of the staff. I mean, the issues you have now with FMLA, are getting so great that you'll have a lot of staff out that are out, either because of issues of themselves or a family member, and they don't want to disclose what their issues are.
Yeah, I think one of it's a big concern in even my department that our employees maintain their confidentiality in whatever situation that they're in. I mean, I would hate to be in some type of a lawsuit where one of the employees came back and said, well, you went around and told everybody I had XYZ disease or something like that,
That's also, I apologize, go ahead.
I don't think we're talking about, I don't know what diseases you're talking about. I mean, we're talking about drugs here that affect your ability to perform, to drive. I mean, we're talking about driving, we're talking about operating equipment and vehicles, I think. I don't think we're talking about people on a typewriter or whatever, but I don't know. I think we're making this into a bigger deal than it needs to be. Have we had a problem? I mean, how many have we had a problem with people having accidents and being high or being drunk or on certain medications that?
Councilmember Hawkins, Mayor Council, I think what we've been trying to do here is be more proactive rather than reactive.
Right.
And we are just trying to make sure that there is a liability component and a risk component to other employees. And each individual is ultimately responsible for themselves. And us as managers, directors need to be well informed so we can create staffing in a case where that happens. So we're just trying to be proactive.
No, I think the policy is written about as good as you can write it. I mean, it looks like any policy of the companies I've worked for. It's pretty standard.
I think it's set as a beginning to say we've improved, but there's still some areas we can improve more on.
I agree. I think we beat a dead horse.
Okay, no other discussion. I'll call for the question, or ask for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 1473-14.
Second.
It is moved and seconded that we adopt resolution 1473-14. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Manager report. You have anything you want to expand on?
No, sir.
Okay. Any questions of the manager's report from staff?
I just
Call-
have one.
Go ahead.
One comment about Padilla Park.
Yes, ma'am.
We want to make sure that people realize that it's not a park for animals. Am I correct in that? It's not a pet park?
Councilmember Woolridge, Mayor Council, Brian Hughes and myself were having this conversation this morning because I've been spending a lot of time watching over projects, and when I go over them in the morning, I've seen a little few piles of some remains. And so Mr. Hughes and I were talking about that and how that's to be worked. The fences are there not for individuals to go and let their pets run around in that park. Pets should be leashed. However, I don't think there's any way we can ever stop them, but what we can do is be proactive in that instance as well and provide those little doggy pickup bags somewhere in the park. It is not a dog park, but...
When we have one, can we just put a sign to let them know where our dog park is?
Yeah.
We can definitely do that, absolutely.
Yeah, just,
I mean, the park is so inviting. I know everybody wants to go in there and take advantage of it, but we want it to be
medical,
comfortable for everyone and, you know, not turn it into a dog park.
We will do
And
that.
I love dogs. I have dogs, so don't say that I'm against pets, but
no, I think, you know, you could
Just
put
wanna
up
use
there,
the purpose that it's for.
what's the term for them? I know they're not all seeing eyes, there's, people have dogs for other
Service
reasons.
dogs or
Service
everything.
dogs, okay.
Right.
Put service dogs only, you know,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay,
Weren't we gonna put cameras in that park?
Yeah, yes, cameras have already been installed, and as of today, they are active, I believe.
And then we can just put some, maybe establish a fine or something like that if you get,
I believe that I'll have to work with both Mr. Hughes to figure out whether or not we can do that and how that would work. But yes, we will look into that.
Yeah, we could make an ordinance with a small fine or whatever, and you could put that on the sign also, and that might help discourage them. And then put also, there are cameras, you know, so they'll know that they'll be seen and caught. Nip it in the bud before it happens.
I think it's just good advertisement, getting the information out that we'd like to keep the animals on leash, and if there are droppings, to pick up the droppings. I don't think it, and then I like the idea about telling them where our dog park is. I think that's a good idea. Any other? Call to the public, second call to the public. Anybody in the public have anything they'd like to say? And here comes Denise.
Denise Kohlert, talking about what you were just talking about. We go to another community for music, like we're planning to do at Padilla Park. People bring their pets to the music, okay? But they're on leashes. If you want people to bring their blankets and chairs to come and sit and listen to the entertainment there, you've got to get people educated not to clean up after their animals, or you're going to ruin the ambiance of the reason you have the park. But it can be done because the community that we go to, like I said, people come with their dogs and their kids, and the kids roll around in the grass, and I'm sure if they rolled into it, you'd know it. So it shouldn't be a problem. It's a matter of people being respectful to who's going to come behind them. Saying that, I can't wait till Thursday to see the first concert in Padilla Park. Everybody come.
Thank you. Okay, Ruth.
Ruth Harrison again. I had the opportunity tonight to speak to Jeff Denzak of Swaback Partners and also Aaron Babcock of Heidel Architects, if I'm pronouncing that properly. Mr. Babcock said that he would be getting some possible ideas together for presentation to you all and to the staff about adjusting the design of that element I was speaking of earlier, the element that looks like the guard tower. I noticed also in the presentation that there's a similar element at the aquatics building, and so hopefully they can come up with something that does not look like that quite. I think there's a good chance of that happening. Anyway, what I'd also like to say is that Saturday, October 25th, is Make a Difference Day. It's the 24th anniversary of this national event, America's largest day of community service, when Americans all over the country set aside some time to improve the lives of others. The town of Florence has an opportunity to lead the way by assigning public works staff to collect bulk trash from the public right-of-way all over town. The town can make a big difference this week and can set the tone for the coming cool weather season. And with the opening of Padilla Park on the 23rd and the groundbreaking for the library and the pool on the 30th, this is the time to do it. I will go out next Saturday to pick up litter. I hope that others in town will do the same. With the town government leading the way by collecting the long lingering bulk trash, the town will be on its way to living up to its motto, Florence, Arizona, where the historic past meets the resilient future. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other member of the audience? Hearing none, call the council. Tommy? Ruben?
Yeah, and I was looking at our emblem that we have for the town of Florence, seeing the same design as what Ruth is complaining about. So it's not so much just looking at it say, from the prison, but it resembles what we already have for the town of Florence. So I don't see that as a bad thing. I see that as we're just adding to it to resemble what we already have. Also, you know, when you had the homecoming this past week, and I believe the mayor, this was your 70th year? Something like that, or 60th year. We'll go with that. And then
You're out of order.
It's just a payback for your comment earlier. Also, the Florence Parks and Rec will be sponsoring its first hike into the Superstition Mountains. That'll be coming up here in November. So if you have an opportunity to go see the Superstitions, this would be a good one when it cools off. That's all I got.
Okay. Tara?
I just want to remind everybody that, you know, we have an important election coming up. Early ballots have already been sent out. We really want to encourage voter turnout in the town of Florence. Please make sure that you mail in your ballots and, you know, it's your choice.
Okay. Bill?
I have nothing.
Valerie?
I don't have anything.
Tom?
Not tonight.
I do. We're elected officials up here. We're used to criticism. We can take our hits. But I don't believe that a staff person for the town of Florence should take hits from the general public. And I'm talking about hits. I'm talking about the way they talk or pronunciate words. We're talking about taking it out on the staff and watching your vocabulary, watching the way you speak to people. I get very insulted when people come in and our staff, not my staff, our staff, is downgraded by some of the citizens in this community. I don't want that. Talk about me all you want to. Leave my staff, our staff, alone. Need a motion.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.